So welcome. This is a brand new section of the course. We've had a lot of requests to have GAM7 on ChromeOS installed, and surprisingly, this is it. The quality isn't as good as I normally like to have, and that is because I am connecting from my Mac through Chrome Remote Desktop through to a ChromeOS Chromebook. And because the ChromeOS Chromebook doesn't have the best display, the 4K quality that I'm used to is a little bit difficult. So please bear with me on this one. But anyway, so I am connected to this, and we have now Googled for GAM7. And if you go down here, you will see GAM7 on Chrome OS devices. Now, Chrome OS works theoretically on a basis of Linux, and depending on what version of your Chromebook you have, yours might or might not work with this, okay? Chrome OS devices that support Linux apps, if you go into this, you can actually go into this and see how you can set it up. If you actually want to see which devices have Linux, you can go and scroll through this whole list over here. If yours isn't here, the chances are it might not work. If it does work, good for you. Okay? So we're going to try and see if this actually works. So we're going to set up Linux on my Chromebook. This is going to be a separate one. We're going to go into this, and we're going to say turn on Linux. So on your Chromebook, on the bottom right corner, select the time, select settings, go to About Chrome OS at the bottom, go to Developers. Over here you see Linux Development Environment, and it says next to this you can click Setup. Okay, so we're going to say Setup there. We are going to work through this now. We're going to say next. Okay, change how Linux apps will work. The username is going to be Paul. That's absolutely fine. Recommended is going to be 10 gigs. Now, obviously, depending on the size of your Chromebook, that might be different. So if we go to customize, you can see that there's only certain amounts of space over here. So I'm going to say 10 gigs is absolutely fine. But if you have no space, then maybe reduce it a little bit. So install. And this may take a little bit of time depending on the speed of your Chromebook. This has now popped up. Okay. So if we go here, it says here, follow the on-screen instructions. Setup can take 10 minutes or more. A terminal window, this is over here, opens up. You have a Debian environment. You can run Linux commands, install more tools using the app package manager, and customize your shell. Okay, you can turn off Linux by doing the same thing, but in reverse. Okay, and other things happen down there. So we are now going to go back here. We now have the Linux set up on the Chromebook. From the terminal app, run the following commands: sudo apt update, and finally sudo apt install xz-utils. That is the grand total of how to actually get that done. It says now go to install advanced GAM, but we are actually going to, if we click on that, we're going to say how to install GAM7, and we are going to follow the Linux, Mac OS, and Google Cloud Shell instructions. Okay. So if you follow those instructions, you can go through that. I'm going to try and do this over here. We've done it before on Linux. That's absolutely fine, but let's carry on doing this. Okay, so we're going to go to downloads and installs. And we are going to run this command over here. Now, basically, this is what this is saying is this is adding a GAM alias to my profile file, which is the bashrc, because I'm running the bash shell over here. Okay, it says, can you run a full browser on this machine? I can say yes. Okay, are you ready to set up the Google API project? I can say yes. And please enter your Google Workspace admin email address. Okay, to carry on consistency with all the other GAMs that I've installed, I have changed the user over here to admin@G Suite. So I'm going to grab this and go into this. This is the admin email address, admin@G Suite. Okay, and it says that this is all not found. So if we go through this, it says that we've created this home Paul GAM, the downloads folder has been created, the GAM folder config has been created, but all these other things like OAuth 2s and all these things have not been created. Okay, so all of this has been created. I'm now going to open a new terminal. And I'm going to choose Penguin again. The reason why I'm going to do this is asking me to get a whole bunch of things activated now. Now, before I get this activated, I need to do a couple of things in Linux so that it's actually all up and running. So if we go down here and we look at here, it says we need a configuration directory. So let's go here, and it says that we need to make a directory. So let's just see what we've got first. If I go ls here, in this directory, I have got bin and downloads. So that's it. If I go pwd to find out where I actually am, I'm in home and Paul. And that's actually quite important because some of these instructions are actually incorrect. So if I go here and let's open up a text document, then I'm going to make sure that I've got home Paul here. Okay, just so that I remember that. So that's the first thing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a directory and we're going to call it gam.config, mkdir space. And I say that I would like to make a directory here. So I'm going to call this gam.config and push enter. And now I'll do ls again. That should show that it's got a nice folder structure there. Okay. So now we're going to add the following line. Add the following line to whatever bash you've got. Now, as we discussed before in the previous terminal here, when it actually added everything, it already added the gam alias to profile file Paul bashrc. So what we're going to look at over here is we need to add this config, gam config directory to the same bashrc. So now I'm going to use Nano as the editing thing. If you want to use other ones, that is really your prerogative, but I am comfortable in Nano. So I'm going to say Nano, and I'm then going to say open up that, which means I'm looking at my home folder. Okay, so under my home folder, I should look at the Nano stuff. Sorry, let's just do this first. ls-a shows you everything that's basically in your home folder, but it's also saying everything that's hidden. So the -a gives you the hidden stuff. And as you can see over here, I've got .bashrc. So now stuff has already been added to that. So if you actually are playing with this and you don't have anything, when you're about to edit this, if you don't have anything in there, something's gone wrong or you're not looking at the right one. So I'm going to say Nano, and I'm going to say, I'm going to edit this. So I'm going to say, look at my home folder, which is that doodah there. Then I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to say .basrc like that. So that's saying, look at this file called .bashrc. And it says, this is not found. So it's a bit frustrating, but basically what it's saying is that in Bash, with this default install, Nano is not there. So we could do Vim. I'm not going to take you down that road because if you're not familiar with Vim, it is quite an experience. So I'm just going to install sudo apt install Nano. Going back up there and say Nano, open this particular file for me. And as you can see here, there is a whole bunch of stuff inside here. Okay, and right at the bottom was that one that we were told was actually created in the other terminal. Adding the alias was done to the bashrc. So if you see that, you're in the right place. But what we've got in the instructions over here is we need to add the following line. We need to add this export config directory into this particular file. Now, for the keen-eyed amongst you, you will have noticed that if I paste this in, you will see that there's a couple of problems with this. One is that it says users there, and I've got a home there. Two, admins here, and I've got Paul there. So if I take this and copy that and dump that in there, that is what I actually need to be editing. So I'm going to copy that. I'm then going to go here, paste that in. And now because I like Nano quite a lot, to get out of it is the exit over here. So it is the caret and X or the control and X. So that goes there and says, do you want to save this? And I'm going to push the letter Y, and I'm going to say, it says, what do you want to write? I'm going to push enter on that one. So that should now have updated the bashrc. Now it says here to go a little bit further. If we are looking at the bashrc, which we've done over here, we now need to reload the bashrc, and reloading it is going to look at the source. So if we go here and say source, the little tilde again, /.bashrc, and we push enter. It shouldn't actually show you anything, but basically it says, now I've got the latest version of the bashrc that's come from what you just edited. So if we now go down here, it says here, do this ls-l and gam config dir. So ls-l and then gam config dir. Now, one of the things that you need to remember, because this has actually been put into the bashrc like this, is you actually need to know that this is actually case sensitive. So if I do this and I say ls-l and push enter, it says there's a total of 0. If I say ls and take a lowercase r at the end there, it says it has no idea. Okay, so it is case sensitive, so please actually remember that. So we're now going to be setting a working directory. So you can either do a working directory like this, which I don't feel like doing, or you could say mkdir, and we're going to say work, push enter, and if we list that out again now, we've got gam config and we've got gam work. Now, the last part over here is that we're actually looking at an alias. Okay, so the alias is supposed to be pointing to this. Okay, and the alias should be inside here. Now, if you go inside and say nano bashrc again, and go all the way down to the bottom, it says the alias that we've actually got in here is alias gam home, Paul, bin, GAM7, and gam. So that is absolutely perfect. So we don't actually have to run this again. I'm going to control X out of that one. And then finally, there is a symlink. Now, if you need to do a symlink, symlinks are only really if you need to do, use a symlink in a script rather. So if you want to, you can obviously set that up. But let's get started on the actual fun stuff now. So we're going to say GAM7. This should be the first GAM7 command executed. So I'm going to copy that. And paste that. So we need to obviously update this. We need to do the same thing again. Home, Paul. I'm going to copy that and change that there. Now we're going to do this. Now what this is actually going to do is quite a fun thing actually. It's show you all the fun things inside there that you actually want to do. So right now, if I open up this, I go into the Linux files over here, you'll see all of this fun stuff. If I click on these three dots and say show hidden files, you'll see there's the .gam, there's the bin that we were talking about, and inside there's the GAM7, there's the bashrc that we've been editing, and other things in there. So we need to now, if you look in this gam config, right now you'll see that there's absolutely nothing inside there. We now need to run this command to put stuff in there. So let's go and grab this and say copy. And let's paste that in, push enter. And you will see that it's now created a file called gam.config and put all of this stuff inside here. Now, you can go through all of this. It makes your life a hell of a lot simpler because there's a lot of things you can play in here that you can set. You can do fully qualified domain names and domains and client IDs and stuff like that. But we're going to play with that right at the end, so stay around for that. So that's all happened now. So if you want to go back into your files over here, you will see that there's a gam config, and under this is the gam config, and we say open that with text. All of these things are the things that you've just seen created in the terminal. So I'm going to say no. Okay, so those are there. I just lost all my notes. You realize that, hey? Just to recover my notes just a smidge, I'm going to go back here. Let's go down to the bottom here and type pwd and just grab that home Paul again. Cool. So we've done this. It's now created that file. And as you can see here, we should be running this command again. So let's go back into that. Run that. And you'll see that didn't work. So let's go here and actually do the proper one, which is the case sensitive one. And you'll see two different files. There's the gam cache, gam cache folder, and the gam.config file. Now, little fun thing, if you actually, when I was playing around with this and reading the instructions, sometimes I see it as -L and sometimes I see it as -1. -1 is just kind of the same thing, except it doesn't give you all the permissions and everything. It just gives you the two files. So depending on how you actually read that, whether it's -1 or -L, both are cool. I have the ability over here to create a project. So we can either run the project over here in the second terminal and we can say create project, or we can actually go back to the first terminal where we were running And it says here, we're now going to create a project. So all of the stuff that we're doing here, are you ready to create this project? It's important to mark your project as trusted. So we are going to go here. And the only reason we're going to go here is just as easier. I'm going to go here. It's copied. Now, just highlighting in this copies it. Please make sure that if you right click, it doesn't actually go through to the next thing here. It's sort of like it will paste it straight into your terminal. So just highlight it, don't right click. So we're going to go into here, pasting this in. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the correct user here. What you'll see is that we've gone through to this place. Now, I've done this quite a few times, so you'll see there are quite a few different projects here. But in this, you can actually close that terminal. In this terminal, it's saying here, click on the configure new app and then enter the following client ID. Once again, remember just to highlight it. It will then copy it and then you can go in. So create new app, search for this app, search. It says it's called GAM project creation. I'm going to click on that. You can select individual organizational units and you can say, I just want to have the super admins, for instance, but that's going to be boring. Let's do the entire company. So we're going to say continue and we're going to say trusted. We're going to trust ourselves. We're going to say continue. And finally, we're going to say finish. And if you are dealing with a school, you will get a pop-up like this, saying that you've got people in your school that are under 18. Please make sure you're aware of this and you're confirming on their behalf. We're going to say confirm. You'll see here, GAM project creation has been done. Okay. So this is all it's saying. And then finally push enter here. Once the trust is complete, it's then going to open another tab in Chrome. And it says, I'm just going to make sure I'm in the right user. I'm going to say allow. I'm going to minimize that. It says the authentication flow is completed and it's going through here. Please note that you can go through all of these different things. There's verification codes here. And if you're unable to paste, you can get URLs from another computer and you can read all of this. If there's anything that you need to do, please go through that. Otherwise, ask questions in the Q&A. So what it's doing now is actually going through the project and it's saying, looking at the project, and this is the project we're looking at, it's looking at enabling 38 APIs. Once the APIs are enabled, it's going to then ask us for permission to those various APIs. If you don't want permission to certain of the APIs, like if you're not a reseller or you're not going to be playing with certain APIs, you can actually ignore it. So we'll do that just now. See, here's a reseller API that's being put up there. It says, all of these have been done. Please go to this address. So I'm going to highlight that again, copy it. Remember, don't right click or anything weird. I'm going to paste that in now. Go there. Over here, it says, if create clients is on the screen, skip to step 14. Otherwise, click get started. Then go app, enter GAM or another value, enter your email address, internal audience, contact information that you need. Under finish, you agree, and then we'll get to the clients. So let's do that. Let's say get started. Under this, we're going to say GAM7OS. We're going to choose me. We're going to say next. We're going to say this is an internal because you don't want people externally using your GAM. Contact information. I'm just going to copy and paste mine. Next, I agree, continue, create. So all of that's happened. It's now going to go through to this next step over here. So we've done the create option. It's now going to say click clients on the left-hand side. So there's the clients. We're going to create a client. We're going to make a desktop client. We're going to call it GAM or something. And then under additional information, we're going to do all of this with client IDs and stuff. And see at the bottom here, there's client ID and the client secrets. That's going to be here. So let's go to clients. Let's say create a client. Okay. Desktop app. This is going to be called GAM7 Chrome OS. Let's say create on that one. Because I'm recording it after June 2025 and you're watching it after June 2025, please know if you push OK on this, this will go away and you'll have to start these client IDs again. You need to make sure that you've got the client ID copied. So I'm going to actually put this into a text over here. I'm going to get the client secret and paste those both in. Then I'm going to copy this again. This was just for safety's sake. And I'm going to click on the client ID. Push an OK, client secret, push enter, and it's going to say here, we now need to give this new app that we've actually added to Google, we need to give it permission to access all these APIs. Okay, so we are going to go back to this. Let's now go back into this link. It says here, click configure new app, click the following one, and this is the app that we have just created. So that's now copied, configure new app, paste that in, and if you say search, it should actually find the app that you've just created. See, GAM7 ChromeOS, and whatever you named it, it will be that one. Okay, so I'm going to do all taming G Suite again. I'm going to say it's trusted, and I'm going to say continue, and I'm going to say finish. I'm going to say confirm, cool bananas. Okay, so that has all been run. So all of this is cool, and now you're going to push enter once the trust is complete. Yeah, so it says this project is enabled. Obviously, if you go into Google Cloud, you'll be able to see all those projects. Okay, and it says here, this is all created and ready to use. Let's proceed to authentication. So we're now going to authorize. So let's push Y and push enter. And it says, these are the APIs. So these are the APIs, the 38 APIs that were made earlier. And what it's saying is here, what do you want to have access to? So the stuff that doesn't have the star in is not going to have access. And the stuff that does have the star in does. So there's certain ones like R over here that is going to be read only. 95% of our clients, the default is absolutely fine and they don't need anything else. If you need to obviously change anything, please read from here and go through the change. Otherwise, let's just push C to continue. If you do all of them, because a lot of people go, I'll just do all of them, it's probably going to fail. So just remember that. Okay, so we're going to say continue. These are all the same things that you've just had those stars with next to it. Okay, I'm going to say allow. I'm going to go back to the thing here, and it says that's all authorized. Okay, are you ready to authorize GAM to manage Google Workspace user data? I'm going to say yes. And it says, please enter the email address of a regular Google Workspace user. So let's just go here to the users, and we have got quite a few different users here. I'm going to just use one here called Michael Scott. So that is going to be Michael at Taming G Suite. So it's going to be Michael at tamingGSuite.com. Push enter. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to try and basically make a change to Michael, see if it's allowed to make a change to Michael. If Michael is able to make a change, then it's going to sort of like say, cool, you pass. If it's not, it's going to say it's failing. So as you can see, it's all failing over here, which is fine. It's the first time it's running. So the second time it runs, after we sort of like give it permission, we then will be able to play with Michael and other users, not just the admin users. We will actually have a service account added to us, so that will be for the entire tenant. All of these are failing. What you'll see here is there's going to be 3 that pass, and these are passing because these should actually never have access. So that's perfect. So we're not going to give them access. We're going to look at this one. That's copied. Okay. So this is the new client's ID that we're actually playing with. And all of these scopes that we've just added there are what scopes you're giving permissions to. So we're going to say authorize and confirm. Okay. And what you can see over here is that it says the service account authorization had failed. So now we're going to try it again. Are you ready to try it again? Yes. And now, depending on how fast Google's feeling that day, it should all pass. Done this hundreds of times. Basically, in the hundreds of times, most of the time it's taken 5 seconds, and I haven't ever had to wait, which is nice. So that's all passing. The last 3 are also passing, and that says that is all good. So it's basically giving you a bit more information about your GAM installation. It will tell you where the path is of the whole thing. It will tell you where your config file is. It will tell you what version of GAM you're running over here, and all of that other stuff. So it says the GAM installation is complete. Please restart. So you can either close your terminal, or we could actually just sort of like run this. And if we run that, that's now loaded the latest version of GAM, which now we can run GAM. So let's just try this, GAM info domain. And now it's telling us all about the GAM domain that has been set up on this machine. And you can see that the primary domain is that, the customer ID is that, the creation time of this tenant was that, and all the other stuff about it. So there's 19 users in this tenant and everything. So one last thing before we go away. If you go back to the GAM installation thing, you can see that there's a whole bunch of things that we've done, and we've done all of these, and we sort of like, you can see all the APIs and everything's there. Final thing that you actually might want to do is if you're running just it for yourself, you've got a custom ID. So what you can actually do is you can edit the config file and add your custom ID, because that's stopping GAM from making additional API calls. If it doesn't need to sort of like find out who you are, it says this is who we are and that's how it works. You can also add your domain straight in. If you don't want to do this, you don't have to. But let's actually just look at this, and you will actually see that in these instructions over here, it says that the config file is over here, home.gam, gam.cfg. So let's edit this. So Nano, once again, that little tilde means that we're in the whole home folder. So /, and then we're in the .gam folder, /, and then we're in the gam.cfg file, which enter on that. And as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of stuff here. So if you want, you can go down here to custom ID, put your custom ID in there. And under domain, you can put your domain in there. Please remember to keep the apostrophes in there. And then once you've finished with that, you can go Control X and you will save that with that. Then afterwards, please make sure that you test this again, go gam info domain, and make sure it actually still works, because sometimes it might not. But if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. But otherwise, thanks so much. Let's see you in the next lesson.